How are we going to get there? So, green building strategy. Vancouver is the only city in Canada that has its own local building code. If you applied it to LEED, from a checklist perspective, it would mean that every building in the city would be about 3 points below LEED as a requirement on the checklist. Now, our code actually requires many things that LEED doesn't give points for, so I actually think it's better performing than a LEED silver building, but that's how it would compare if you used LEED as your benchmark. About 2 years ago at the World Urban Forum, our Mayor Sam Sullivan launched the eco-density exercise. He launched it with a rather simple message that despite all of our successes, we were still living on the equivalent of 4 planets. We are not a sustainable city, and he has always believed that not only is density the most important tool in the toolkit for sustainable city building, but it's the one aspect of smart growth that gets the least attention. He likes to rail about Al Gore failing, because at the end of Inconvenient Truth, he didn't talk at all about city form and density. And he thinks that that's the only way we're going to get there. It's not about light bulbs, and even about cars, as often has been said. So he was willing to put his political future, if you will, on the line by putting density front and center as his political platform. My task over the course of the last year and a half has been to take that basic idea of densification, strategic green densification, and translate into a community dialogue as an initial step, and ultimately into a charter, a series of actions, and ultimately a new plan for the city, which we're going to be naming the EcoCity plan. This is our basic model, the 3 goals that Council originally set for us, and we thought a lot about what the metaphor or the model should be. The 3 goals were sustainability, and particularly ecological sustainability, but also maintaining our emphasis on livability and addressing what is, in the public's mind, the most important issue these days, which is escalating affordability problems within our city. We deliberately decided to make it not a 3-legged stool, but a tricycle, not only because of the bicycle metaphor, but because we wanted to emphasize that ecological sustainability was the big wheel. It was the key wheel. So we say that that's the wheel where the pedals are. It's going to move us more towards single planet living. But at the same time, if the back wheels of livability and affordability fall off, we're not going to get anywhere. So this is the metaphor that we've used, and I've been pleased that the public seems to have gotten it, although there is an awful lot of debate about whether the wheel of affordability is big enough. The most interesting thing and exciting thing for me through this process has been the sheer amount of public awareness and dialogue and media attention this exercise has got, both positively and negatively. And as an urbanist who likes public dialogue about anything around city building, I'm pretty excited about that. It's raised the level of awareness considerably on the issue of density. I like to say, although not quite accurately, but I think it sounds nice, that it's gotten to the point where you really can't say you're pro-environment and anti-density. The debate in Vancouver now is how to do density well, and what are the motivations for this project, and is this about developer profit or public good, and all sorts of things like that. But nobody is discounting, after a year and a half of discussion, to my mind, the basic relationship between environmental performance and densification. Most of the discussion we've gotten to at this point in this process has been based on the sentence, well, densification is inevitable, but let's talk about how to do it well and how to do it more. As I say, there is a downside. There's been a fair amount of negative media as well, but even the negative media has been good because it's been raising issues, the quality of the amenity that comes along with density. How will we really ensure that the buildings are green and not just densification? How will we time the transit better because we're far behind on transit infrastructure and investment in our province, et cetera, et cetera. So I've taken all of that negative media, even the stuff that drives me crazy because of how inaccurate it is, as a good thing, because again, it's pushing the dialogue further, it's getting questions out there to be discussed and answered. We've had to explain how eco-density does not replace sustainability, but is part of a larger framework within the city for a truly sustainable city at the end of the day that includes things like urban agriculture, food security, green buildings, transportation, social housing, etc. As you can imagine, I get a lot of developers saying, just give me density, don't focus so much on green requirements. The public says, just make the developers do green buildings, don't make us take density. We've had to show how the two are related. This is a graph that we had our consultants do that looked at energy just from building stock. Does not include transportation, it's just building stock, and it looks at the various housing types and their basic energy footprints, GHG per square foot kind of thing. And as you can see, as soon as you move away from single-family houses to some of the smaller suites, like singles with suites, coach houses, etc., you immediately get to a smaller footprint. Oh, there we go. You immediately go lower. Townhouses and row houses are a little bit lower. Interestingly, it pops up a little bit under low-rise and high-rise apartments. That's generally because under conventional building practices, it takes a lot of energy to build mid-rise and or low-rise apartments and high-rise apartments in Vancouver because of our materials and other energy choices and such. But here's what happens when you start to layer on some basic green design, green technology. As soon as you do a little bit of light, very light green housing, just some better business practices, ASHRAE, etc. Everything dips. Low-rise and high-rise dips a little more, but everything dips. As soon as you start to go to deep green, though, I actually call this the gasp slide because it's the first time in my career when I showed it at a public meeting, people gasped. It shows what you can do when you start to do LEED Silver or better and other basic green design and energy approaches only with higher densities. Because frankly, no matter what anyone will tell you, there's only so much you can do around green design, green technology, etc. in the lower density forms, either because the technology isn't feasible or the cost isn't feasible. This is what we're showing that we could actually do through eco-density if we, it's our existing case of about 5 tons per person. The status quo based on our existing densification strategies by 2031 would get us to 4 tons, but eco-density would get us to about 2.5 tons. That would be the goal. The charter, we say, will essentially reset Vancouver's philosophy. It will make ecological performance the #1 city building goal of the City of Vancouver. It'll make very strong commitments, not just the standard document that collects dust on a shelf. It will change the way we do even our business practices on a daily basis at City Hall. It's interesting, when we did a tour for the media early on in our eco-density exercise, and we brought them out to projects to show, the developers that were on the tour didn't want to say anything negative about City Hall and the rules when they were talking to the media. And I had to actually say to the developers, no, tell the media every single rule or guideline or process that made it harder for you to do this green project than the ordinary conventional project. Because one of the whole points of this exercise is to identify all those barriers and start to get past them, change them, amend them, scrap them, in order to make the green projects the new business as usual. And one of the main concepts that we're really using throughout this is the idea of an eco-city being made up of a shared responsibility between eco-neighborhoods. As you can imagine, we've had many neighborhoods in our city saying, that's great for the city, but don't touch mine, my particular neighborhood. We've actually gotten into some strange dialogues where, you know, you can almost imagine one neighborhood saying, I want to live on 8 planets worth of resources, you go live on 3, that kind of thing. We are looking at density forms all over the city, all sorts of different density forms. It's not high-rises everywhere. We've coined the phrases invisible density, secondary suites, within all unit types, even apartments. You can do secondary suites within an apartment, a rentable suite. What we've called hidden density. There's a tremendous amount of interest in housing types in the back of our lanes. We are a lane-heavy city. For granny suites, or I've called them Fonzie suites because Fonzie was a renter, and we don't want to always assume that there has to be a family relationship, a granny sort of relationship with the lane-oriented house and the parent house, because that's a great opportunity for rental stock within the city. And what we've called gentle density, the kind of densification that certainly you can see, but it doesn't change the fundamental single-family scale or form of these neighborhoods. And you can double, triple, quadruple your population, bring the kids back, do all the things you want to do within neighborhoods without having to do towers, without having to do height. So this is where we are. The most important and interesting thing in this whole dialogue has been about how public it has become and how much the media has jumped all over it. A reporter called it the surprise news story of the year.